Hi there, this is Steve Kimes with MennoNerds, and I am here to interview another celebrity, another important person in the whole life of MennoNerds and Mennonite. Today, we're going to interview Robert Martin. That's right. He's one of the founders of MennoNerds. That's how I'm so excited. I can't believe that we're actually talking to the man who created MennoNerds. I'm so excited. Anyway, but Robert has been away for a little bit.
Yep.
He's been doing other things. We'll add some more, but Robert is the nerd extraordinaire, and he is the husband of Heather, and he is father of two kids, right?
Correct. Two daughters.
Okay. Oh, two daughters. That's exciting.
Yeah.
You know, when I was when before I had my first one, I was looking. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so scared to be a father. And at that time, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to read some books about this. And so there were books at the time, and it says how to raise a boy and how to raise a daughter. And I thought, oh, this is great. But the one that said how to raise a daughter was like a third longer, and I'm like, oh no. Anyway, what are you doing, Robert?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. It's been a journey the past few months, but doing okay.
So just in case there's somebody watching this and they don't know, your wife Heather did just pass away a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And
it was September 20th. That was her. I like to call it her homecoming. She went home after 6 years on and off battling breast cancer. So it was a long fight, and she was heroic the whole way through it. Wonderful inspiration, wonderful woman, and just finally it was time to go.
All right. Well, we are all of us at MennoNerds, and I know that I myself am really I've been following you as much as I can through this, and you know, I'm quite a distance away, so I'm not able to offer a lot of support, but I have been praying for you, and I know that a lot of the folks in MennoNerds have been praying for you as well, and for Heather, and we are very sorry for your loss.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'd like to go back a little bit and talk about when you left MennoNerds, and so I want to talk a little bit about at that time you left MennoNerds and you kind of left social media in general, which is something that a lot of us find kind of shocking that you did. But what was some of your reasons for leaving, for especially leaving social media, but for just kind of stepping back in that way?
I'll be quite blunt and honest. It was an addiction for me. Many of you probably familiar with a lot of studies and everything like that out there about social media, about generally a problem that sometimes happens where you're constantly seeking that attention, that it is a euphoria, actually, that when you publish an article on a blog, or make a tweet or put something on Facebook that gets shared and liked and reshared and quoted and all this, it really is a addiction of adrenaline, endorphins, and it caused some problems for me. I actually ended up losing my job because of it. That's when I actually left MennoNerds and dropped off social media. It was because I realized, yeah, that's why I lost my job. And I had to take a serious, hard look at life and step back and reconsider a lot of things. So yeah, it was a wake up call for me, and it is. I mean, yeah, I'm back on social media now, limited. I don't have my Twitter account, don't have my blog anymore. Um, I'm I've dropped off of so many different groups on Facebook that I used to be active in. Um, I've pruned back my friend list from somewhere around 800, 900 down to. I just did another quick pruning last night, about 500 now, of people that I was connected with because I thought, well, maybe if they share it or they like it or interact with it, that I'll get that much more of a presence or whatever. And so yeah, that was a big problem for me, and it still is something I have to be very, very diligent in. Um, I found I mean, the reason why I came back to Facebook, especially, um, is that I needed a support structure after my wife's passing. I mean, I have my church at home, and they have been amazing and wonderful. And so I have a very strong physical support structure. People are providing rides for my girls to get to classes and things like that, and um, they've been very, very helpful. And I've stepping away from social media has taught me to more closely value those direct real life connections. There's a lot more reality that happens there. But at the same time, my family is far flung. My brother's in Ohio, my sister's in Ephrata, my dad's in New York. I have an aunt and uncle in Colorado and another in Virginia, and they're all over the place. And I realized that I really needed my extended family. I needed to be able to have that connection with them to be able to help me through my grief, um, to share memories with, and just generally have that support around me. So um, my social media presence is now more for that purpose than for anything else. I occasionally put something out there that's a little bit more theologically oriented or politically oriented, but again, it's more along the lines of, I found this, and in considering what's going on in the world, thought this would be a good contribution, but then I move on to posting strange jokes and funny pictures and things like that, and just interacting with friends and family, and the other stuff just doesn't seem to hold it for me anymore.
I certainly appreciate the puns that you posted. That in fact, I just reposted one just yesterday because that I do a lot of puns myself, and so I
Yeah, I
appreciate
appreciate your
that
punning.
side of you.
You're a very punny guy. I can't bear the punishment. So, and I'm sure
Yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
groaning right now. And the best puns are the ones that physically hurt. Those are the best puns.
So, but let me ask you, so how would a person know the difference between them being involved in social media in a positive way and it being a negative addiction? How did you make that distinction? I mean, losing your job certainly means something, but
Yeah.
I think that you probably knew that ahead of time. How do you make that distinction?
I think when it starts replacing the real interactions in life, where you're spending more of your time looking for that, again, it's a high. It really is. And spending more of your time looking for that high, for that next like, for that next repost, um, and you start um, making that your life priority to try to get that next fix, if you would. Um, it honestly, I think for most people, it's going to take some kind of external wake up call to really notice it. But it's that retrospective that after that happens, you say, "Oh yeah, now I see it. Now I see where my problem was." And honestly, it's as difficult sometimes to recognize that as it is for someone who is an alcoholic who says, "Oh, I can control it. It's just a drink or two every now and then, right? It's not a big deal." When you start making those kind of excuses, yeah, that's a warning sign. That is I can control it anytime I want to. It's not a problem, and I will tell you here right now, even though I'm on Facebook now, it still is a problem. I have to be very careful, or I will slip back into those old patterns. I have some great friends who slap me around a little bit if they see me slipping, and I ask them to say, hit me, whatever you need to do, um, show me where I'm going wrong. So, but yeah, be aware of when you start replacing reality with the virtual reality. I think that's your biggest warning sign.
So, Robert, I have another question along these lines. So, you were talking about social media interactions versus real interactions, but I have found that there's a lot of social media interactions that are real interactions. I mean, I've had conversations over social media that have actually changed my life, sometimes with people who I have not even met. Also, I've had experiences where I've had a lot of experience where there's a lot of really positive networking and really good things that turn out into tangible, real actions on social media. And so I'm wondering, how would you know a difference between a unreal social media interaction and a real social media interaction?
That's a very good question. There is a level of sharing and interaction that happens that becomes more personal, I think. Couple good friends that I still stay in very good contact with. Chris Lenshin, who he and I both kind of started this whole MennoNerds thing back in the day. Kyle Rudge up in Winnipeg. Jamie, a couple other people. The interactions become real. As you said, there's reality that happens. It becomes less about the sharing of links and posts and comment threads, and more about a life together, where you break that wall into becoming personal, where some of what was happening with me with some of the addiction side of things is I was putting out a lot of blogs and tweets and posts and things like that. And it wasn't personal. It was me putting on a persona, putting on a face, a mask, a avatar of sorts that wasn't really me. And so the interactions that I was receiving were not exactly with me. They were with that alternative persona. Whereas nowadays, the interactions that I have on a regular basis, I have become a lot more honest and blunt and frank in my interactions online. Letting people know right up front, this is me. This is not an avatar. This is not a persona I'm putting on. This is not something that I'm just putting out there to get people to like me, interact with me, and make me more famous. It's, you know what? If you don't like me, fine, whatever. Unfriend me, unfollow me. Not a big deal. I've got plenty of people that really care about me, that I'm not really concerned about losing somebody out there who's only interested in the famous Rob Martin, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Another thing that I've discovered in my studies of addiction is that generally somebody will go into an addiction because there's something lacking in their life. There's something missing in their life, and it could just be that the addiction is a result of depression, or it could be that it's a result of trauma that has happened early. So when you drop something out, then you have to fill it
Right.
with something else that's positive. So what did that you filled your life with to kind of meet the needs that were there? I'm asking really personal questions. I hope you don't.
No, no, it's okay because it's a personal journey. Um, what did I refill my life with? So I dropped off the social media. What did I fill it up with? I filled it up with my family. Um, it's kind of hard not to fill it up with my wife because that was so I lost my job in 2016. She got re-diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at the beginning of 2017. It was in that in-between time she was dealing with some pain that we thought was just sciatica and it turned out to be the return of the cancer. So it was reconnecting with my wife on a very personal level. The caregiving that I had to do, I had to step up my game a lot. Re-engaging my daughters because with Heather not being able to do as much, I needed to step into some gaps and some spaces that she normally filled in that I needed to take over. You're right. One of the reasons why I was seeking that attention on social media was depression. Um, I'd been dealing with it for a while. I think I probably didn't completely finish grieving my mother's passing in 2007. So there was a part of that going on there. And I've always struggled with self-esteem issues, with not feeling valued. So one of the things I spent a lot of time doing is seeking and praying and searching God and trying to recenter where my value was coming from to make sure that I was getting it from Him and not from the artificial things that I was creating. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate this because I know that there's a lot of people out there who have been struggling with kinds of things that they're looking for the next high on social media or whatever. And there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that didn't even realize or still don't that they're addicted to the likes or the whatever. And so it's I really appreciate you being willing to talk about it back when you left and to talk about it now. I think it's a really important issue for all of us to think about. Especially to think about what are the relationships that are real in our lives, ones that are just surface, especially when whether it be social media or otherwise, honestly. I do. I have another question though.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so you were talking about putting up a front on social media, that putting up a avatar, a persona who will generate the likes and all that. So how different is that from being a persona as, let's say, a pastor? Because every pastor has to put on a
Ooh,
persona
yeah.
in order to minister to their congregation. That isn't their whole selves. They can't be their
No,
whole selves. And so how different is that?
it's not. Honestly, I think it's not. And to be truthful, I think that there's a problem many times in many churches where the pastor is not genuine. That they don't put out there, this is who I am. Because how are you supposed to be a pastor to be able to minister to a hurting person and that hurting person will respond and say, you have no idea what I'm going through. You're perfect. If a pastor puts on that kind of persona of this perfection, this wonderful saintly person who has their life together, and oh my goodness, God is so awesome, he's so good, and he's done so much for me, I am so blessed, and oh, look how wonderfully happy I am in my life. And the rest of the world is looking at them and saying, you are such a fake. As I said, I don't think there's a lot of difference between that persona that a pastor will put on and the artificial face that many people put on social media. And I think what a lot of people are looking for these days is genuineness in the people that are their ministers. I mean, we have Paul in Second Corinthians putting it right out there. Say, look, I've got my problems. I've got this thorn in my side that I'm dealing with, and I wrestle with it and struggle with it and cry out to God with it, and I still don't have relief. God, he says, hey, lean on me. I'm not fixing it for you this time. You're just gonna have to lean on me and trust me. And I think that's what endears me more to Paul than anything else that Paul may have said, that he was willing to be that vulnerable human. Yeah. So I said, you're right. Pastors put on that persona. I don't think there's a lot of difference between that and an online avatar. But just like I think an online avatar is a problem, I think a pastoral persona can be a problem as well.
So, can you get a memory of kind of what's been a few years, and with you already said that she had last September passed away of breast cancer. So how did that happen? So you said that she was re-diagnosed early in 2017. So
Right.
she had had bouts with cancer before,
Yeah.
and
She.
so what exactly happened?
Uh. Okay. So I got to retell the story, and hopefully I don't fall on there. Um. um. She was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in 2012. It was a lump that would not have shown up on on a mammogram. So, hey, ladies, check yourselves. Honestly, that is the only way we found this.
Hmm.
So, feel those boobies. I know that's not exactly what you want to hear on a religious broadcast, but feel up those boobies because really. Um, so
Got it
yeah,
right here from two. Go ahead. Sorry.
um, so yeah, so she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in 2012. Basically had the triple threat done to her. Um, Surgery, chemo, and radiation. At which point in time the PET scans showed clear. Um, Early 2013, she was di- indicated as basically being in what's called full remission. She was clear of cancer at the time, but she was on long-term hormonal therapies just to kind of keep it at bay because there's always a chance of recurrence. Um, and let's see. Then yeah, so as I said, in 2016, she started experiencing back pain, lower leg pain. Um, that again, X-rays and other diagnoses didn't show anything. So everything was looking at it. Just sounds like sciatica, pinched sciatic nerve. So they started working on with some physical therapy and things like that. Um, and finally, we had an MRI done in January of 2017. And sure enough, it was a pinched sciatic nerve, but it was a pinched sciatic nerve because her cancer had metastasized to her lower spine. Basically, the entire tailbone region of her lower spine was consumed by a tumor. There were spots on a couple of lumbar vertebrae. Um, and that is officially a diagnosis of stage 4 cancer when it's spread to other tissue beyond the originating tissue. Um, um, so Yeah, sorry. This is tricky. I don't tell the story very often anymore.
It's fine, and if you need to take a break
No,
or if
no,
this is too
I'm
much
good.
for you,
I'm
it's
good.
okay.
So,
All right.
and that was rough. I mean, I remember her sitting in the doctor's office when he came in and told us the diagnosis. Just her face just fell because here we thought we had beaten it, and it was back. Um, but again, for those of you out there who say stage 4, oh my goodness, that's horrible. Technically speaking, stage 4 cancer is not always a death sentence. Many people live for a long time, and many times it has to do with where the cancer shows up and what type of cancer it is, and all those kinds of things. So the doctor was very hopeful um, of being able to do good treatments. Um, so he put her on a long-term chemo. We knocked it back a little bit with radiation. And by September 2017, again, she was in remission. I mean, the tumors weren't gone, but they weren't growing anymore. In fact, the way the scan looked in September, the way the doctor described it, is just if I didn't know that you had cancer and I gave this scan to somebody else, all they would see is that there had been at some point in time some kind of disease there, but there was no sign of it. So we were very happy in September for her to come back with like a full remission diagnosis at that point. So Christmas time, late, after Christmas, she was starting to feel some pain again. Went in for another scan, and it had come back again. This time there was spots showing on one of her lungs, on her liver. The cancer on her spine had spread to a couple of other vertebrae. So the treatments that she was on at that point in time weren't working anymore. And that's, again, standard pattern for stage 4 diagnosis. You try a treatment, you work with it, um, keep using it until it doesn't work anymore, change treatments, lather, rinse, repeat. So we knew that was good. That was the case. So switched over to another set of medicines, um, and hoped and prayed that they would work some more. And there was some sign of it helping. Like late spring, she had another scan, and there was some sign there that the soft tissue was showing signs of improvement, the liver and the lung. The bones were showing what the doctor called a flare, which is sometimes when the cancer starts reacting against the medicines before the medicines start to work. You see a little bit of a flare up and then it moves on. Obviously, I know a heck of a lot more about cancer treatments than I ever did before, ever wanted to know.
I bet.
But what started happening, especially in June and July, is her blood work started coming back showing indications that the medicines were having a bad effect on her liver. At least that's what the original indications were. So there was some adjustments that needed to be done with some of the meds. Um, I mean, during this time, we had a fantastic family vacation. We took a long drive out to Colorado Springs. We drove out 3 days, spent 4 days in the Colorado Springs area, and drove back another 3 days. We had a fantastic time as a family. And I think for those 10 days, except for Heather needing to keep up with her medicines, we forgot for a while that cancer was part of our lives. And that was freeing. And then the end of July into August, those liver numbers started showing some bad signs. And August 31st, a PET scan was done. And the way the doctor put it was the liver, especially, there wasn't a healthy spot showing on the scan on her liver. The PET scan was lit up like a small sun. We didn't actually get to see the scan until we went for a second opinion at another doctor, and he showed us the scan. And yeah, normally a cancer spot shows up as a hot spot on a PET scan. Her entire liver was a hot spot.
Yes.
And that was devastating, because that is, of the many organs in your body that could be serious if you lose it, your liver is one of your biggest. You lose that, everything goes wrong. So we started a number of treatments. Well, no, what was it? They were going to put her on a chemo, and then she ended up in the ER with what they call a pleural effusion, fluid building up in the sacs around her lungs. They drained that. They admitted her to the hospital. The liver numbers were continuing to go the wrong direction. While in the hospital admitted, they put her on one round of chemo to see if we could knock it back, try to get her healthy so they could get her on a clinical trial for some new medicines that might help. She was discharged, was home for 2 days, went back to the ER because she was starting to lose consciousness regularly. It's what's called hepatic encephalopathy. Because of the toxins the liver's not filtering out, starts shutting down your brain. So in the ER, I had to make a decision. Do I take her to the ICU and try to get her stabilized and maybe somehow find some way of letting her live a little longer? Or was it time to say goodbye? And she had made up a living will the first time in the hospital. And we decided to exercise that and say, no, it's time to go home. And it didn't take long. The next day she was gone. And that was the most traumatic, emotional experience I have ever experienced in my life. I literally felt ripped in half. Those of you who have spouses, husbands, wives, partners, you know what I mean. They are your other half. And when they are gone, you're half a person. Yeah. So that's it. That's what happened. It was 6 years from initial diagnosis to passing.
And how are your daughters taking it? How are they being able to process this?
I think they're doing okay. It's hard to say. Sometimes I wonder if they are holding back because they don't want to. They want to be there for me, be strong for me, help me through this. They're doing okay. Holding up. I mean, life patterns have changed around the house here, so it's difficult trying to come up with a new pattern. And of course, seeing their daddy every now and then break down into tears is not fun. But life has settled into a new normal, and I think we're adapting. We're making it through. And I think spending time on occasion, remembering mom, remembering my wife, is helping. And we don't ignore what happened, that we spend time actually remembering. I think that's a big part of it.
Well, I really want to. I thank you for being so vulnerable and being open like that. Of being the kind of pastor that you were just talking about. And that, it's actually one of the things that I find to be really interesting. A pastor, technically, a pastor isn't doing the work of pastoring. A pastor is supposed to be encouraging congregations to do the work of pastoring. Everyone does the work of pastoring. I mean, that's ideally that's the way it's supposed to be. And we're all, when we're vulnerable and we're sharing things that are going to encourage other people, that's it. We've done it, you know. And I, like in the churches that I've pastored, I do little of the work. It's people in the congregation who do it. What you just shared right now was just this big lump of vulnerability. It's the sort of thing that really encourages others when somebody is like, here's my story. This is the raw reality of what's going on. Anyway.
And that's one of the things that I've been doing with social media, is I've been using it as kind of an outlet to express that rawness, that reality, because I think, and again, here's me burning down Christendom again. I think grief sometimes is taboo in Christian circles. Why are you so sad? They went home. You should be happy she's in heaven. I'm like, shut up. Just shut up.
Yeah.
No. Yes. Okay. Sure. I'm glad she's in heaven, but I wanted her here. I wanted her here a lot longer than that. So just shut up. Yeah. Go away. I don't want that. And I think we tend to, in the Christian circles, as I said, put a taboo on grief, that it is so raw, so uncomfortable that we ignore it, we hide it, we stuff it away. And I don't want to do that. There are too many people out there who are sad, who are grieving, who are feeling loss, that somebody has to start being, again, genuine and authentic. And again, I'm not doing it to gain the attention. It's me. It's me. My therapy. I have to express it, otherwise it's going to eat me up inside. So I have to put it out there, and that's one thing that social media has been helping me with over the last couple months. That I've got an outlet that, when I'm alone in the darkness at night in my house and it's quiet, and I don't have a physical person to talk to. I mean, yeah, I'm praying to God and calling out to Him. Don't get me wrong on that. But to be able to put up there and say, this is how I'm feeling right now. And not really expecting anybody to come back with anything. Just, I need to get it out there. I need to be able to say it, to express it. And I know there's people who probably, I was talking to a friend last night, that there's somebody who came to him one time and says, why is Rob putting that stuff up there? Oh my goodness, that is just, he shouldn't feel that way. And my friend, bless his heart, told them, shut up. Who are you to tell him how to grieve?
Yeah.
And
that's right.
So, very good friend. And I appreciate him very much for that. But yeah, come on, people. This is reality. This is the world that we live in, broken and hard. And it's time that we as Christians actually show Job, the book of Job. Here's a raw book about grief. And let's be as authentic as Job was. Cry out to God, shout at Him, yell at Him, accuse Him if you have to. And just let grief happen.
So who do you go to for support? I mean, do you have a professional counselor that you talk to? Are there people in you're talking to? Who is it that is your support people?
I do have a professional counselor I go to. In fact, I started going to him before Heather passed. I recognized that a lot of what I was dealing with through Heather's illness was depression and even early stages of grief, realizing that my life, I was grieving a loss of normal life. Um, I mean, again, anybody who's ever walked through cancer with somebody, you know that there's a lot that hits you. And so I was going through some of that. So I have a professional counselor that I'm seeing regularly. And one of the things that we talked about is being real with your emotions and giving yourself a chance to express, because that is healthy, especially in the grieving process. I have friends that I call on occasion. Kyle Rudge from Geekdom House up in Canada, he came down right around the memorial service and helped me out around the house a little bit. Chris Lenshin has been a great person to lean on. Family and friends around here. The guy I talked to just last night, he's been a regular help. Another big help, I have a cousin who he also lost his wife from stage 4 cancer. And I've got a lunch date with him on Tuesday this week that I'm going to be spending some time with him. We eat food, cry, share time. So yeah, friends, family, and professional help. I encourage again. Some people say, I don't need a therapist. No, maybe you do, because it helps kind of make sense of what's going on up here. Having somebody on the outside who makes that their job to understand how people's brains work and helps you to kind of sort through things. Life's too hard to go alone. Don't ever try it alone. Not worth it.
And so one thing I was wondering about is, what is the kind of support that is helpful to you and the distinctly helpful to you in going through the process where you're at?
I mean, obviously, there's a lot to be said about the practical support. Being a single parent now, all of a sudden, my girls being very active that they are, people offering to give rides to get them from one place to another if I have to work or if I'm busy. That's very practical support there. Um, uh, Folks coming over and helping out with things around the house if I need a little bit of help or whatever. So I mean, that's one really big thing that's very helpful. Very practical support. If you want to help, I will say I need this done, and that's going to be a really big help. But on the emotional and psychological side of things, the biggest help is presence. I'm going to be very raw and emotional a lot, and what I don't need is platitudes and, oh, it's okay, or this too will pass, or God's got a plan, or again, shut up. Presence. Sitting on the ash heap with Job. There's a lot of criticism about what Job's friends did for him. But those 7 days where they sat on the ash pile with him saying nothing and just letting him grieve, that right there is the best ministry you can give somebody when they're going through a time like this. Presence. Letting them speak their heart. Letting them be raw and emotional. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to answer it. Don't try to figure it out. Listen and absorb. And you may need to go off then after a while and dump off on somebody else. Because if you absorb my grief, then you're going to have to take it to somebody and so on like that. But absorb, take it in, be present. That is the biggest help I think anybody can give.
We've heard a lot about we've heard a lot about the process of grief, or how there's stages of grief. Do you find that you're actually going through stages of grief, or is your experience different than that?
I'll say I go through them all. Um, you go, yeah. I mean, you got the denial, the sadness, the anger, the bargaining, and the acceptance. I think those are the 5 stages that people typically talk about, and I think that's roughly the order that you usually put out there. And I will say, in my experience, you hit them all, not necessarily in that order, and not necessarily only once. I find myself jumping to anger and then back to denial of, oh, I can't believe this happened, to going to deep sadness, to a point of accepting of what's going on, back to a bargaining, oh, if only I could. Just, you're all over the place all the time. There's not really, I mean, it's good to recognize these are normal parts of the grieving process. This is normal. Lean into it. It's part of what happens. But don't look at it as a graduation process. Oh, I finally hit acceptance. I'm done. Yay! I've graduated. I'm no longer grieving. No, sorry.
It does sound kind of silly, doesn't it?
That's not going to happen. You are going to get hit again many times. But I mean, I had just like earlier this week a point of acceptance, of recognizing that the way that she passed was so much better than what things could have been. And then today, I went to the doctor's office for bronchitis, and I realized I had to change my emergency contact information all of a sudden. And woof, the sadness just rolled right over me. So, yeah, there's the stages, but don't expect that when you hit a particular point that you're finally done. You will be all over the place in there. And it's good to recognize, oh, I'm here right now, and it's okay to be here right now. I will move on to something else eventually, but this is where I am right now.
Mm.
I think you can kind of relate. Didn't you just lose your father recently?
I did. In November. Yeah, my father passed away.
Yeah. So you probably relate. I mean, it's probably not as. I don't want to categorize one grief more or less than another, because everybody experiences them differently and they have different characteristics to them. But I'm sure as you're processing through things, you're finding the same thing, that some days you're on the sad side, some days you're accepting, some days you're bargaining, you're angry. It's all over the place. So I think it's good to recognize that that's kind of natural in the process.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's. I think you're right. I think that's really that. So one last thing that I just want to bug you with. So when you have a time when the voices are dark and you just want to shut them out, what do you turn to? And I'm specifically talking about media, sir. Yes, that's right. I want to know what kind of books, movies, what is it that you turn to when you're just like, okay, I just need to take a break from my head for a little while. What do you do? Is it video games? We want to know.
World of Warcraft. Yeah, World of Warcraft. It's a massive multiplayer online role playing game. I run around and I shoot monsters with my bow and arrow. Basically, is kind of what it comes down to, and it's an escape. It really is. I will confess that it is an escape. That I say, okay, I need to do something that is a fantasy and an escape, because right now I just need to. I need to separate just a little bit because I need to recover. And again, there's always a danger in that as well, that if you use it as an escape too much, it becomes a habit and a pattern that you are avoiding the grief. But every now and then you just need to take a vacation and just escape, because, and that's kind of what that trip to Colorado did for us as a family this summer. That we'd been spending 2 years fighting this cancer, and we escaped for 10 days. And we needed that. We needed that. It was a time of bonding and healing that we really desperately needed.
That's great. That's great. And actually, it's really good for all of us to have something that we can have, that we're just gonna that we can just kind of shut out the world for a little while and get that break. I think it's part of the time of the Sabbath rest. Although I never would have thought the World of Warcraft as a Sabbath rest, but hey,
Hey, it's
to each their own.
It's fantasy. I've managed over the years in my love of fantasy and science fiction to be able to separate fiction from reality. It's fiction. It is purely fiction, in the most fantastical sense of fiction. So I don't see any conflict in it at all. It's kind of like with me with Lord of the Rings. Again, there's lots of big combat and war in Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, it's a fictional universe. It's fake. Let's just go ahead and escape for a little while and just enjoy the struggle that is presented in the book. I'm working my way on my 39th reading of the book, by the way. So that's, again, another escape. So
yeah, 39th reading. Well, congratulations. I hope that your 40th reading will be as good as your first.
Yeah, every time I read through that those novels, I find something new. It's the way it is. So.
Well, I just wanted to end it this way to give you your nerd cred. Thank you. Just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being. Thank you for sharing. And we just really appreciate it. It's good to see you. It's good to hear from you again. And hopefully we may catch up with you again.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad you reached out. Again, hello to all the MennoNerds that are out there, and keep on keeping on. I think our society and our world are very much ready to hear about a different kind of Christianity, and I hope you guys can continue to move forward with presenting a new way to think about things, at least new compared to what the world is doing. So keep it up. Keep going.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And it's been great talking to you.
Same here, Steve. And I'll see you online with more puns.
Hey, everyone. This is Paul Walker. If you like what you just heard, be sure to check out more of what we have to offer at MennoNerds.com. It's the hub for all things MennoNerds. From there, you can learn more about these podcasts, syndicated blogs from people all over the world, books authored by some of our members, and a host of other exciting free resources for you and your church. Now, there's one last thing. What we do costs a bit of money, and we're always doing it on a volunteer basis. We have people that are committed to making this happen, but we could use more people. If you like what we do, please consider donating monthly. We have two options. You can either do a monthly donation through Patreon, or you can give a one-time donation at any time through PayPal. We love the work we do, but we do need your help to keep it going and to expand into new territory. If you would like to donate, check out MennoNerds.com/donate. Thanks for listening, and as always, have a great day.